Camping is supposed to be an escape. Fresh air, quiet nights, no one around for miles. But when the fire dies down and the forest goes silent, you realize some places aren't as empty as they seem. I haven't been camping since that night. Not once. My friends think I'm being dramatic. They tell me I'm overreacting, that I probably just heard a bear or a deer. They weren't there. They didn't hear it. They didn't feel the weight of that presence pressing against the tent walls like it was testing how thin the nylon was. They didn't see what we found in the morning. Let me back up. It was October 2019. My buddy Jake and I had been planning this trip for months. We both worked dead-end office jobs in Albany, and we needed to get away, disconnect, breathe. So we picked a spot deep in the Adirondacks, a remote area near Lake Champlain, miles from the nearest road. No cell service, no people, just us and the wilderness. We hiked in on a Friday afternoon. The weather was perfect. Crisp air, golden leaves, the smell of pine and damp earth. We found a clearing by a creek, set up our tent, and spent the evening like idiots in their 20s do. Cooking hot dogs over a fire, drinking cheap beer, telling stupid stories. It was peaceful, normal. That should have been my first warning. Nothing that peaceful lasts. We went to bed around midnight. Jake passed out almost immediately, he always did. I stayed awake a little longer, listening to the creek, the wind in the trees, the occasional crack of a branch. Eventually, I drifted off. I don't know what time it was when I woke up, but I woke up to footsteps. Heavy, deliberate, slow. They were moving around the tent. At first, I thought it was Jake getting up to pee. But when I turned my head, he was right there next to me, still in his sleeping bag, snoring softly. The footsteps continued, circling. I froze. My heart was pounding so hard I thought it would wake Jake. I listened. The footsteps were rhythmic, steady, not frantic or clumsy like an animal would be. They moved with purpose. One step, pause. Another step, pause. Always the same distance from the tent. Always the same slow, deliberate pace. I held my breath, listening. The footsteps stopped, right outside my side of the tent, maybe 2 feet away. I could hear breathing, low, wet, raspy, like something was sniffing the fabric. I didn't move. I didn't breathe. I just stared at the tent wall, waiting for something to push through, for claws to tear the nylon, for a face to appear. But nothing happened. After what felt like an eternity, the footsteps started again, circling, over and over. I wanted to wake Jake. I wanted to scream, but I couldn't. I was paralyzed. My body wouldn't move. All I could do was lie there, listening. The footsteps never stopped. For hours, that thing, whatever it was, walked around our tent. Sometimes it paused. Sometimes I heard the breathing again. Once I heard a low growl, not like a bear. Not like a dog. Something else. Something deeper. I kept my eyes on the tent wall, watching for shadows, for movement, but I couldn't see anything. Just darkness. I don't know when I finally passed out from exhaustion, but when I woke up, the sun was rising. The woods were filled with birdsong. Everything felt normal again. Jake was already awake, sitting up, staring at me. "Dude," he said quietly. "Did you hear that last night?" My stomach dropped. "You heard it too?" He nodded. "I woke up around 2. Thought it was you walking around. But then I realized you were right next to me. I didn't want to freak you out, so I just stayed quiet." We didn't say anything for a moment. Then Jake unzipped the tent and stepped outside. I followed. That's when we saw them. Footprints. Bare. Human. Footprints. But they were huge. Easily size 15, maybe bigger, and they circled our tent. Perfectly. Over and over. We followed the tracks. They made a complete loop around the tent, then looped again, and again. Jake pulled out his phone and started counting. 30 loops. 30 perfect circles around our tent. But here's the thing that made my skin crawl. The prints were deep, like whatever made them was heavy, and they were spaced evenly. No stumbling. No dragging, just steady, deliberate steps. "What the hell?" Jake whispered. I didn't answer. I was too busy staring at the last print. It was right outside where my head had been, right where I'd heard the breathing. We didn't talk much after that. We packed up in silence, barely looking at each other. The whole time, I felt like we were being watched, like something was still out there, hidden in the trees, waiting. We hiked out faster than we'd hiked in. When we got back to the car, Jake tried to rationalize it. Maybe it was some weird prank, some creep trying to scare us. I wanted to believe him, but deep down I knew better. No person would walk in circles for hours, in the middle of the night, in the middle of nowhere, barefoot, without making a sound except for footsteps. And no person would have made me feel the way I felt, like prey. We drove home. We didn't talk about it again. Not really. Jake tried to bring it up once, a few weeks later, but I shut it down. I didn't want to think about it. I didn't want to remember, but I do, every night, because here's the part one haven't told anyone. A few months after that trip, I was alone in my apartment. It was late. I was watching TV trying to fall asleep, and then I heard it. Footsteps. In my hallway. Slow. Deliberate. Circling. I sat up, my heart racing. I grabbed my phone, turned on the flashlight, and checked the hallway. Nothing. But the footsteps didn't stop. They moved to my bedroom door. I heard the breathing again. Low, wet, raspy. I didn't sleep that night, and I haven't slept well since. I still hear it sometimes. When it's quiet. When I'm alone. The footsteps. The breathing. I don't know what that thing was. I don't know why it followed us. But I know one thing. It's still out there. And I think it's still looking for me. I moved apartments twice since then. Changed my phone number. Stopped camping. Stopped hiking. I even avoid being alone in the woods during the day. My friends think I'm paranoid. Jake doesn't talk to me anymore. He thinks I'm crazy. But I know what I heard. I know what I felt. And every time I close my eyes, I see those footprints. 30 perfect circles. Around my tent. Around my life. I don't know when it'll come back. But I know it will. And next time, I don't think it'll just circle. I still can't explain what we saw that night. And believe me, I've tried. I've gone over it 1,000 times in my head. I've searched online for logical explanations. I've talked to park rangers, hikers, even a therapist. Nobody has an answer that makes sense. My girlfriend Emma thinks I'm obsessed. She doesn't like talking about it anymore. But she was there. She saw it too. She just wants to forget. I can't. Let me tell you what happened. It was late June 2021. Emma and I had been dating for about a year, and we decided to do a 2-day backpacking trip on the Appalachian Trail. Nothing extreme, just a section in Virginia, maybe 15 miles total. We're both experienced hikers. We'd done this kind of trip before. The first day was perfect. We hiked about 8 miles, set up camp at a marked site, cooked some ramen, watched the sunset. We talked about moving in together, about the future. It was one of those nights that makes you feel like everything's going to be okay. We slept well. The second day is when things went wrong. We got off trail. I don't know how. I'm usually good with maps and navigation, but we took a wrong turn somewhere around midday. We didn't realize it until we'd already gone a couple miles in the wrong direction. By the time we doubled back, we'd lost at least 2 hours. The sun was setting faster than we expected. We tried to make it back to the marked trail, but the woods got darker and thicker. Emma was getting nervous. So was I, though I didn't want to show it. "We need to stop," she said. "We're not going to make it before dark." She was right. I pulled out my phone, no signal obviously, and checked the GPS. We were about a mile off trail, deep in the woods. There was a clearing marked on the map, maybe half a mile ahead. "Let's just get to that clearing," I said. "We'll camp there for the night and find the trail in the morning." Emma nodded, but I could see the worry in her eyes. We hiked in silence, using our headlamps to light the way. The woods felt different at night, heavier, like the trees were closing in. When we finally reached the clearing, it was almost 9 p.m. That's when we saw it. A campsite, already set up. I stopped dead in my tracks. Emma grabbed my arm. There was a tent, a 2-person dome tent, dark green, newer looking. It was zipped shut. Next to it was a campfire ring, and the coals were still glowing. Faintly, like someone had just put it out. Clothes were hung on a makeshift line between two trees. T-shirt, pair of jeans, a towel. But there was no one there. "Hello," I called out. My voice echoed through the trees. No response. Emma squeezed my arm tighter. "Let's go," she whispered. "Go where?" I said. "It's pitch black. We can't hike in the dark." "I don't care. This isn't right." I knew she was right. Something felt wrong. But I was exhausted. My legs were shot. My back was killing me from the pack. "Let's just stay on the other side of the clearing," I said. "We won't touch their stuff. We'll just camp here for the night and leave at first light." Emma didn't like it, but she didn't argue. We set up our tent as far from the other campsite as possible, maybe 50 feet away. We didn't make a fire. We didn't cook. We just crawled into our tent and tried to sleep. Couldn't. I kept staring at that other tent through the mesh window of ours, waiting for someone to come back, waiting for a light to turn on inside. But nothing happened. Around midnight, I heard it. Whistling. Not a song. Not a tune. Just one long, sharp note. Came from the woods. Emma sat up. "Do you hear that?" I nodded. The whistling continued. Over and over. The same note. The same pitch. It didn't change. It didn't stop. Then we heard footsteps. Heavy. Crunching through leaves and branches. Slow. Circling the clearing. Emma grabbed my hand. Her palm was sweating. "Someone's out there," she whispered. "Maybe it's the person who owns that tent," I said, trying to sound calm. But I didn't believe it. The footsteps kept circling. Slowly. Methodically. And the whistling never stopped. We didn't move. We barely breathed. I don't know how long it lasted. An hour. Maybe 2. Eventually, the footsteps stopped. The whistling stopped. Silence. We didn't sleep. We just sat there, holding each other, waiting for the sun. When dawn finally came, we packed up as fast as we could. We didn't talk. We didn't look at each other. We just wanted to get out. But before we left, I made a mistake. I looked back at the other campsite, and it was gone. The tent, the fire ring, the clothes on the line, all of it, gone. I blinked, rubbed my eyes, walked over to where the tent had been. There was nothing. No footprints, no tent stakes, no ash from the fire, just dirt and leaves, like it had never been there. "Emma," I said, my voice shaking. "Emma, look." She turned around and went pale. "No," she whispered. "No, no, no." We ran. We didn't stop until we hit the main trail. We hiked out in record time, didn't say a word until we were back at the car. Emma started crying. "What the hell was that?" she said. "What did we see?" I didn't have an answer. We drove home in silence. I tried to research it. I looked up stories about phantom campsites, disappearing tents, ghost hikers. I found a few similar stories online, but nothing concrete. Nothing that explained what we experienced. I even went back. 3 months later, alone. I hiked to that same clearing. There was nothing there. No sign that anyone had ever camped there. No sign that we had camped there. But I found something, carved into a tree about chest high. 3 words. "You weren't welcome." I haven't been back since. Emma and I broke up a few months after that trip. She said she couldn't stop thinking about it. That every time she closed her eyes, she heard that whistling. I understand, because I hear it too. Sometimes late at night when I'm lying in bed, I hear it. That same long, sharp note. And I know, whatever was in those woods is still there, waiting for someone else to find that campsite, for someone else to stay. I just hope they're smarter than we were. I hope they run. I still check behind me when I'm alone in the woods. Every few seconds. I can't help it. It's been 3 years, and I can't shake the feeling that someone's watching. That someone's always just out of sight, standing between the trees, waiting for me to turn around. My therapist says it's PTSD. She says what I experienced was traumatic, and my brain is stuck in survival mode. She's probably right, but that doesn't change what I saw. That doesn't change what he left for me. Let me go back to the beginning. I'm a solo camper. Always have been. Most people think that's weird, especially for a woman, but I love it. The solitude, the quiet, the feeling of being completely alone with nature. I've been doing it for years without any problems. I'm careful. I know how to handle myself. I carry bear spray, a knife, a whistle. I research my locations. I tell people where I'm going. I follow all the rules. But none of that mattered that night. It was late September 2021. I drove up to Oregon to camp near Crater Lake. I'd been there before. Beautiful area, well-maintained trails, relatively safe. I found a spot off the beaten path, about a mile from the main campground. Close enough to civilization, but far enough to feel isolated. Perfect. I set up my tent around 4 p.m., gathered some firewood, and made myself dinner. The weather was gorgeous. Clear skies, cool breeze. The lake was like glass, reflecting the sunset in shades of orange and pink. I sat by my fire, reading a book, drinking tea. Peaceful. Around dusk, the feeling started. You know the one I'm talking about. That prickling sensation on the back of your neck. That animal instinct that tells you you're being watched. I looked up from my book, scanned the trees. Nothing. Just shadows and branches. I went back to reading, but I couldn't focus. The feeling wouldn't go away. It got stronger, heavier. I stood up and walked around my campsite, shining my flashlight into the woods. "Hello," I called out. "Anyone there?" My voice sounded small, swallowed by the forest. No response. I convinced myself I was being paranoid. It was just my imagination. Maybe an animal nearby. A deer. A raccoon. I went to bed early, around 8:30. I zipped myself into my tent and my sleeping bag, kept my knife within reach, and tried to sleep. Couldn't. The feeling was still there. Stronger now. Around 10 p.m., I heard branches snapping. Close. Too close. I sat up, my heart pounding. I grabbed my flashlight and unzipped the tent just a crack, peeking out. That's when I saw him. A man, standing between two trees, maybe 30 feet away, just standing there, staring directly at my tent. I froze. He didn't move, didn't blink, didn't make a sound. He was tall, thin, wearing dark clothes, a hoodie, jeans, boots. His face was shadowed, but I could see his eyes, reflecting the moonlight, locked on me. My hands were shaking. I slowly zipped the tent back up, my breath coming in short, panicked gasps. I grabbed my knife and my phone. No signal. Of course. I sat there in the darkness, listening. Silence. No footsteps. No breathing. Nothing. I waited for what felt like hours before I worked up the courage to look again. I unzipped the tent. Slowly. Just an inch. He was still there. But closer now. Maybe 20 feet away. Still staring. Still not moving. I zipped the tent shut and bit down on my hand to keep from screaming. My mind was racing. Should I run? Should I yell? Should I use the bear spray? I didn't know what to do, so I just sat there, knife in one hand, bear spray in the other, waiting. I don't know how long I sat like that. Time felt broken, stretched out. Eventually, I looked again. He was even closer, maybe 10 feet away now, still staring, still silent. Tears were streaming down my face. I wanted to scream, to run, but my body wouldn't move. I could see more details now. His face was gaunt, pale. His eyes were sunken. His mouth was slightly open, like he was breathing through it. But I didn't hear any breathing. I didn't hear anything. I sat there until sunrise. I never looked again. Couldn't. I just sat with my back against the tent wall, knife in hand, praying for morning. When the sun finally came up, I heard birds. Normal sounds. Daylight sounds. I waited another 30 minutes before I opened the tent. He was gone. I packed up faster than I ever have in my life. I didn't eat, didn't drink. I just threw everything into my pack and got the hell out. But before I left, I noticed something. Near my tent, pile of stones, stacked perfectly, deliberately, balanced on top of each other in a small tower, maybe a foot tall. I didn't stack those stones. and then I saw what was on top. Polaroid photo. Face down. My hands were trembling as I picked it up. I turned it over. It was me, sleeping, inside my tent, taken from above, like someone had been standing over me, looking down through the mesh roof vent. I dropped the photo and ran. I ran all the way back to the parking lot. I didn't stop, didn't look back. I reported it to the park rangers. They searched the area. They found the stone pile. They found the photo, but they never found him. They told me it was probably a drifter, someone messing with campers for fun. They told me I was lucky nothing happened. But something did happen, because I can't sleep anymore. Not in a tent, not in the woods, sometimes not even in my own bed, because every time I close my eyes, I see him, standing there, staring, and I wonder, when did he take that photo? How long was he standing over me? How many times did he look inside my tent before I woke up? I moved to the city after that. I stopped camping, stopped hiking alone. I barely go outside anymore. My friends say I'm different now, quieter, more anxious. They don't understand. They didn't see him. But here's the thing that keeps me awake at night. About 6 months ago, I was walking home from work. It was getting dark. I had that feeling again, that prickling on the back of my neck. I turned around, and I saw him, standing at the end of the block, just watching. I blinked, and he was gone. But I know it was him. I know he's still out there, still watching, still waiting, and I don't think he's done with me yet. I don't go into the woods at night anymore. Not after what happened. Not after hearing my own brother's voice calling me from something that wasn't him. My younger brother Danny doesn't talk to me much these days. He says I blame him for what happened, but that's not true. I don't blame him. I blame whatever the hell was out there in those woods. Whatever knew our names. Whatever tried to get us to come outside. Let me tell you what happened that night. It was June 2020, middle of summer. Danny had just graduated high school and I promised him a camping trip. Just the two of us, like we used to do when we were kids. Our parents had divorced a few years back, and we'd both been dealing with it in different ways. I thought getting away would be good for us. We picked the Smoky Mountains. We'd been there before, same campsite, same trail. Familiar territory. Safe. Or so we thought. We hiked in on a Saturday afternoon. The weather was perfect. Warm, clear skies, not too humid. We set up camp near a creek, same spot we'd used 2 years earlier. Everything felt normal, comfortable. We spent the evening goofing around like idiots, skipping rocks, telling embarrassing stories, roasting marshmallows. Danny was smiling more than he had in months. I remember feeling happy, relieved. That should have been my first warning. Nothing good lasts in those woods. We went to bed around 10 p.m. Danny was in his sleeping bag, scrolling through photos on his phone. No signal, but he downloaded a bunch of memes before we left. I was reading by flashlight. Around 10:30 I heard it. Chris. My name. Clear as day. Danny's voice. I looked over at him. He was still staring at his phone, earbuds in. Yeah, I said. He pulled out an earbud. What? You just said my name. He looked confused. No, I didn't. I felt a chill run down my spine. I just heard you say my name, I said. Dude, I didn't say anything. I'm literally listening to music. I stared at him for a moment, then shook my head. Sorry, I must be hearing things. He shrugged and went back to his phone. I tried to go back to my book, but I couldn't focus. My heart was beating too fast. 10 minutes later, I heard it again. Chris, come here. Danny's voice. Exactly the same tone. Same inflection. But Danny was right next to me. Earbuds still in. Completely absorbed in his phone. I sat up. Danny, I said, my voice shaking. Did you just hear that? He pulled out his earbuds again. Hear what? Someone just said my name. What? No, I didn't hear anything. It sounded like you. His face changed. The smile disappeared. That's not funny, man. I'm not joking. We sat there in silence for a moment, listening. Nothing. Just the creek. The wind. Normal forest sounds. You're freaking me out, Danny said quietly. I'm freaking myself out, I replied. We decided to go to sleep. Or try to, anyway. I turned off my flashlight. Danny put his phone away. We zipped ourselves into our sleeping bags. I was just starting to drift off when I heard it again. Chris, I need help. Danny's voice, coming from outside the tent. My eyes shot open. I looked over at Danny. He was staring at me wide-eyed. You heard that? I whispered. He nodded slowly. That wasn't me, he said. Chris, that wasn't me. My blood ran cold. We both lay there, frozen, listening. Silence. Then, from right outside the tent, we heard it again. Chris, please, I'm hurt. It was Danny's voice. Perfect. Exact. But Danny was right next to me, his hand gripping my arm so hard it hurt. What the fuck? He whispered. What the fuck is that? I didn't answer. Couldn't. Then we heard my voice. Danny, come outside. I need you. It was me. My voice. My tone. But I wasn't speaking. Danny started shaking. Chris, what's happening? I don't know, I said. But don't go outside. No matter what you hear, don't leave this tent. For the next 4 hours, we listened to our own voices calling to us. Sometimes it was Danny calling my name. Sometimes it was me calling his. Sometimes it was our mom, our dad, our friends from high school. All perfect. All convincing. Chris, please, I'm scared. Danny, I can't find the tent. Help me. Chris, there's something out here. Danny, I think I broke my ankle. Every voice we knew, every person we cared about, but wrong, flat, emotionless, like someone was reading a script. We didn't move. We didn't speak. We just held onto each other in the darkness, listening to those voices circle our tent. Around 3 a.m., it got worse. The voices started overlapping. Multiple voices, all at once, all calling our names. Chris, Danny, Chris, help me. Danny, where are you? Chris, please. Danny, I'm dying. They were everywhere, surrounding the tent, coming from every direction. Danny was crying. So was I. I've never been that scared in my life. And then suddenly they stopped. Complete silence. We didn't move for hours. We just waited. When the sun finally started to rise, the birds began singing. Normal sounds returned. We packed up without saying a word. We didn't eat breakfast. Didn't take down the tent properly. We just grabbed our stuff and ran. We hiked out in under an hour, a trail that should have taken 2. When we got to the parking lot, we sat in my car for a long time, not speaking. Finally, Danny said, "What was that?" "I don't know," I said. "Do we tell someone? Who would believe us?" He nodded. We drove home in silence. I tried to research it when I got back. I found stories online. Lots of them. People hearing voices in the woods. Voices of loved ones. Calling them. Luring them. Some people call them mimics. Others say they're skinwalkers. Some think they're spirits. I don't know what they are, but I know they're real. I know they knew our names. And I know they wanted us to come outside. Danny and I don't talk about it. Ever. But sometimes late at night, he'll text me. "Did you hear it?" And I'll know exactly what he means. Because I hear it too. Sometimes, when I'm alone, I hear my name. In Danny's voice. In my mom's voice. In voices of people I love. And I know it's not them. I know it's that thing from the woods. Still calling. Still waiting. And the worst part? Last week I was at home. Alone. Watching TV. And I heard it. From my hallway. "Chris, come here." Danny's voice. But Danny lives 3 states away. I didn't move. I didn't answer. I just sat there, frozen, as the voice called my name over and over. Whatever that thing was, followed us home. I still can't sleep in the dark. Not after that trip. Not after watching something that defied every law of physics and logic move closer to us, hour by hour, until I could feel its heat on my skin. My husband Mark thinks I'm being irrational. He says there's a scientific explanation for what we saw. Swamp gas, atmospheric phenomenon, ball lightning, but he doesn't sleep well either. and he won't go camping anymore. Let me tell you what we saw. It was our 5th anniversary. September 2022. Mark and I wanted to do something special, something meaningful. We'd gotten married in a courthouse with no ceremony, no honeymoon. We'd promised ourselves we'd celebrate properly when we had money. 5 years later, we still didn't have much money, but we had time. So we decided on Yosemite. We'd always wanted to go. We booked a backcountry permit, planned a 3-day trip, studied the maps. We were excited. This was going to be our adventure, our anniversary celebration. The first day was perfect. We hiked about 5 miles into the backcountry, set up camp in a gorgeous meadow surrounded by pine trees and granite peaks. The views were breathtaking. We made dinner, took photos, talked about our lives, about how far we'd come, about the future. We were happy. Around 8 p.m., the sun started to set. The sky turned orange, then pink, then deep purple. We sat outside our tent, watching the stars come out. That's when Mark noticed it. "Hey, look," he said, pointing across the valley. "Other campers." I looked where he was pointing. Across the valley, maybe half a mile away, there was a campfire. A big one. Bright orange flames, clearly visible even from that distance. "Nice spot they picked," I said. Mark nodded. "Yeah, must be at that clearing we saw on the map." We watched it for a few minutes, then went about our evening routine, brushed our teeth, organized our packs, got ready for bed. Around 9:30, I stepped outside to use the bathroom. I glanced across the valley. The fire was closer. I stopped. That didn't make sense. I stared at it for a moment, trying to orient myself. Had I gotten turned around? Was I looking at a different fire? No, same direction, same valley, but the fire was definitely closer, maybe a quarter mile away now. "Mark," I called out, "come look at this." He emerged from the tent, flashlight in hand. "What's up?" I pointed. "That campfire. Does it look closer to you?" He looked, frowned. "Yeah, actually, it does." We stood there in silence, watching. "Maybe they moved their camp," Mark said. "Or maybe it's a different fire. In the middle of the night?" He shrugged. "I don't know. Maybe they're hiking with lights. Could be headlamps." It sounded reasonable, logical, but something felt wrong. We went to bed, but I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about that fire, about how it had moved. Around 11 p.m., I got up to check again. Mark was snoring softly beside me. I unzipped the tent as quietly as I could and stepped outside. The fire was closer, much closer, maybe 500 feet away now, and there was no one near it. I pulled out Mark's binoculars. He'd brought them for bird watching and focused on the fire. It was just floating. No people, no tent, no camping gear, no logs underneath it, just flames, suspended in the air, flickering, crackling, moving toward us. My hands started shaking. "Mark," I said, louder than I intended. "Mark, wake up." He groaned. "What? What's wrong?" "The fire. You need to see this." He crawled out of the tent, rubbing his eyes. I handed him the binoculars and pointed. He looked. His body went rigid. "What the hell? Do you see it?" I asked. "There's no one there," he whispered. "It's just floating." We stood there watching through the binoculars. The fire didn't behave like a normal fire. It didn't flicker randomly. It moved with purpose, like it was being carried. But there was no one carrying it. "This has to be some kind of optical illusion," Mark said. "Some kind of reflection or—" "It's moving, Mark. It's getting closer." He lowered the binoculars and looked at me. "Maybe we should pack up." "And go where?" "It's pitch black. We don't know these trails." He knew I was right. We stood there, frozen with indecision. "Let's just keep watching it," Mark finally said. "If it gets any closer, we'll leave. I don't care if it's dark." We didn't go back into the tent. We just stood there, taking turns with the binoculars, watching that impossible fire drift toward us. By midnight, it was maybe 200 feet away. We could hear it now. The crackling, the popping. the sound of wood burning. But there was no wood. "We need to leave," I said. "Now." Mark nodded. "Get your stuff. Fast." We scrambled into the tent and started shoving things into our packs. We weren't being careful. We weren't being organized. We just wanted to get out. That's when the temperature changed. It got hot, really hot, like standing next to a bonfire. "Oh God," Mark said. I looked outside. The fire was right there, maybe 50 feet from our tent. We could see it clearly now. Flames 6 feet tall, burning with an intensity that hurt to look at. Orange and yellow and white hot. But there was nothing underneath it. No logs, no kindling, no ground burn, just fire, hanging in the air. And it was still moving, toward us. "Run," Mark said. We grabbed our packs and ran. We didn't follow the trail. We just ran in the opposite direction of that thing, stumbling through the darkness, branches whipping our faces, rocks turning our ankles. We ran until we couldn't breathe. When we finally stopped, we looked back. The fire was gone, just gone. No light, no flames, no heat, darkness. We stood there, gasping for air, staring at the empty night. "Did that just happen?" I asked. Mark didn't answer. We hiked through the night. We didn't stop. We didn't rest. We used our headlamps and followed the trail markers and kept moving until we saw the parking lot. We reached our car at dawn. We threw our stuff in the trunk and drove straight home. We didn't stop for breakfast. Didn't stop for gas until we absolutely had to. We didn't talk about it for days. When we finally did, Mark tried to rationalize it. Ball lightning, swamp gas, mass hallucination. But I saw the look in his eyes. He didn't believe any of that. Neither did I. We reported it to the Park Service. They were polite but dismissive. They said lots of people see strange things in the backcountry. Fatigue, dehydration, altitude. But we weren't tired. We weren't dehydrated. We saw something that shouldn't exist. I've tried to research it. I found a few similar stories online. Floating lights, ghost fires, unexplained phenomena in national parks. But no answers, no explanations, just questions. What was that fire? Where did it come from? What would have happened if we'd stayed? I don't know, and I don't want to know. Mark and I don't camp anymore. We don't talk about Yosemite. But sometimes late at night I wake up sweating, and I swear I can smell smoke and feel heat on my skin. Like that fire is still out there, still moving, still looking for us. I still hear them sometimes, when it's quiet, when I'm alone. The footsteps, always the same distance behind me, always matching my pace, always stopping when I stop. My friends think I'm paranoid. My family thinks I need medication. My doctor says it's auditory hallucinations brought on by stress. But I know what I heard, and I know what I found. Let me take you back to where it started. August 2021. I was 29 years old, working a soul-crushing corporate job in Denver, and I needed to get away. I'd been hiking and camping since I was a kid. It was my therapy, my escape. I planned a 3-day solo backcountry trip in Colorado, nothing too extreme, just a loop trail through the San Juan Mountains. I'm experienced. I know what I'm doing. I've done dozens of solo trips. I've never had a problem. Until that one. The first day was normal. Beautiful, even. Clear skies, stunning views, crisp mountain air. I hiked about 10 miles, set up camp near a lake, watched the sunset. Perfect. The second day is when it started. I broke camp around 8 a.m. and started hiking. The trail was well marked, not too difficult. I was making good time. Around 10 a.m., I heard footsteps behind me. I stopped. The footsteps stopped. I turned around. Nothing. Just empty trail. I figured it was an echo. The mountains do that sometimes. Sound bounces weird. I kept walking. The footsteps continued. I stopped again. They stopped again. I spun around fast this time, trying to catch whoever it was. Still nothing. Just trees and rocks and silence. "Hello," I called out. My voice echoed through the valley. No response. I stood there for a minute listening, watching. Nothing moved. I convinced myself I was being paranoid. It was just my imagination. Maybe an animal. Maybe the wind. I kept hiking, but the footsteps didn't stop. For hours I heard them, always behind me, always the same rhythm, always the same distance. Step, 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 matching mine exactly. I tried everything. I walked faster. They matched my speed. I walked slower. They slowed down too. I stopped suddenly. They stopped instantly. It was like someone was shadowing me, mimicking me, but every time I turned around, there was nothing there. By noon, I was freaking out. I pulled out my phone, no signal of course, and checked my map. I was about 5 miles from the nearest trailhead, too far to run, and the terrain was rough. I decided to keep going. What else could I do? The footsteps followed. Around 2 p.m., I tried something different. I stopped in the middle of the trail and spoke out loud. I know you're there. I can hear you. If you're another hiker, just say something. If you're trying to scare me, it's working. Please just show yourself. Silence. Then, from somewhere behind me, I heard breathing. Heavy, raspy, close, too close. I spun around, my hand on my knife. Nothing, but I heard it. I swear to God. I heard breathing. I started walking faster, almost jogging. The footsteps matched my pace. I started running. They ran too. I ran for maybe a mile before I had to stop. My lungs were burning. My legs felt like jelly. I bent over, gasping for air. The footsteps stopped, but the breathing continued. Right behind me, I could feel it. Cold air on the back of my neck. I spun around, swinging my knife. Nothing. I was alone. Completely alone. I started crying. I'm not ashamed to admit it. I was terrified. I forced myself to keep moving. I had to get to the trailhead. I had to get out of there. The footsteps followed me for the rest of the day. I didn't stop again. I didn't eat. I didn't rest. I just walked. By the time I reached the camping area I'd planned for that night, it was almost dark. I set up my tent as fast as I could, barely securing the stakes before diving inside. I zipped the tent shut and sat there, knife in hand, listening. The footsteps circled my tent, slowly, deliberately, around and around. For hours, I didn't sleep, couldn't. At some point during the night, the footsteps stopped. But I heard something else, scratching, on the outside of the tent. Slow, deliberate scratches, like fingers dragging across the nylon, testing it, exploring it. I sat there, frozen, barely breathing. The scratching moved around the tent, from the door to the side to the back. Then it stopped. Silence. I waited. Nothing. At dawn, I packed up faster than I've ever packed in my life. I didn't eat breakfast, didn't check my gear. I just threw everything in my pack and ran. I hiked the remaining 8 miles to the trailhead in under 3 hours. When I got to my car, I sat inside for a long time, shaking, crying, trying to process what had happened. Then I noticed something. On my windshield, a note, tucked under the wiper blade. My hands were trembling as I got out and grabbed it. It was a torn piece of paper, dirty, wrinkled. One word was written on it in black marker. Soon, I got in my car and drove. I didn't stop until I was back in Denver. I reported it to the park rangers. They searched the area. They didn't find anything. No evidence of anyone camping nearby. No footprints. No signs of anyone following me. They said it was probably a prank. Some asshole hiker trying to scare a solo female camper. But that doesn't explain the footsteps. It doesn't explain the breathing. It doesn't explain how someone could follow me for miles without me ever seeing them. And it doesn't explain what happened next. 3 months later, I was at home, in my apartment, in Denver, safe, or so I thought. I was getting ready for bed, brushing my teeth, when I heard it. Footsteps, in my hallway, the same rhythm, the same pace. I froze, toothbrush in my mouth, staring at myself in the mirror. The footsteps stopped, right outside my bathroom door. I couldn't move, couldn't breathe. I waited. Silence. After what felt like an eternity, I opened the door. My apartment was empty. But on my kitchen table I found something. Another note. Same handwriting. I'm closer. I moved the next week. Changed my number. Changed my locks. Installed cameras. But it didn't stop. Every few months, I hear the footsteps. In my new apartment. At the grocery store. Walking home from work. Always behind me. Always the same distance. And twice more I found notes. I see you. Almost time. I've been to the police. They can't help me. There's no evidence. No suspect. Nothing. I'm being stalked by something I can't see. Something that's been following me for 3 years. And I think it's almost ready. Whatever it's been waiting for. Whatever soon means. I think it's coming. And I don't know how to stop it. I still hear the footsteps. Every day. Getting closer. Always closer. I still have nightmares about that sound. The screaming. Desperate. Terrified. Echoing across the water in the dead of night. My therapist says trauma affects everyone differently. She says some people block it out, some people obsess over it. I'm the second type. I can't stop thinking about what we heard. About what we didn't do. About the woman who drowned. Let me tell you what happened that night. It was May 2019. End of sophomore year. My college friends and I, there were 6 of us, decided to rent a campsite by a lake in northern Maine. One last party weekend before summer break. We weren't thinking about anything serious. We just wanted to drink, blast music, tell stupid stories around a fire, be young and dumb. The campsite was perfect. Private, isolated, right on the water. The lake was huge, maybe 2 miles across, surrounded by dense forest. Beautiful during the day, unsettling at night. We arrived Friday afternoon, set up our tents, bought way too much beer, started drinking around 6 p.m. By 10 p.m., we were drunk and loud and laughing about nothing. Around midnight, someone suggested we tell ghost stories. Classic camping tradition. We sat around the fire, taking turns trying to scare each other. My friend Marcus told some story about a hitchhiker. Sarah told one about a possessed doll. Typical stuff. We were laughing more than we were scared. Then, around 1 a.m., we heard it. Screaming. From the lake. We all stopped talking. It was a woman's voice. High-pitched. Panicked. Desperate. Help! Help me! Please! The sound carried across the water, clear and horrifying. We all stood up at once. What the fuck was that? Marcus said. Someone's in the water, Sarah said. We need to help. We grabbed our flashlights and ran toward the shore, stumbling over rocks and roots in the darkness. When we reached the water's edge, we shone our lights across the lake. Nothing, just black water. Still, calm. Hello, Marcus yelled. Where are you? No response. We stood there, scanning the water with our flashlights, breathing hard. Then we heard it again. Help me, please. I'm drowning. Closer this time, maybe 50 feet offshore. But we couldn't see anything. No splashing. No movement. The water was completely still. This doesn't make sense, I said. If someone's drowning, where are the ripples? Maybe they went under, Sarah said, her voice shaking. Marcus started pulling off his shoes. I'm going in. Wait, I said, grabbing his arm. Something's wrong. If someone's really drowning, why can't we see them? Because it's dark, he said. Let go of me. That's when we heard it again. But this time it was different. The screaming came from directly beneath us, under the water, right at our feet. We all jumped back. What the fuck? Sarah screamed. The water was still. No bubbles. No movement. Nothing. But the voice continued. Help! Please! Someone help me! Coming from under the surface. Clear as day. Like someone was 5 feet underwater. Screaming at the top of their lungs. This isn't real, I whispered. This can't be real. My friend Jessica started crying. We need to leave. Now. We can't just leave someone drowning, Marcus said. There's no one there, I yelled. Look at the water. There's no one. We stood there, frozen, listening to the screaming continue. It went on for maybe 2 minutes. Then it stopped. Suddenly, complete silence. The lake was still. The forest was quiet. Even the insects had stopped chirping. We didn't move. We just stood there, flashlights pointed at the water, waiting. Nothing. "We should call someone," Sarah finally said. "There's no signal," Marcus replied. "Then we should drive to town. Find help." But none of us moved, because deep down we all knew whatever we'd heard wasn't human. We walked back to camp slowly, not speaking. The fire was still going, but it felt different now. The warmth didn't reach us anymore. We sat around it, close together, no one wanting to be alone. "What do you think that was?" Jessica asked quietly. "I don't know," I said. "Do you think someone really drowned?" Sarah asked. "The water didn't move," Marcus said. "If someone was actually in the water, we would have seen ripples. Splashing. Something." "So what was it?" Jessica pressed. No one had an answer. We tried to stay up the rest of the night, but exhaustion eventually won. We crawled into our tents around 4 a.m., leaving the fire burning. I didn't sleep. I just lay there listening. At dawn, we packed up in silence. No one wanted to stay another night. Before we left, Marcus insisted we check with the park ranger. The ranger station was about 10 miles away. We drove there in 2 cars, none of us speaking. The ranger was an older guy, maybe 60, with a weathered face and tired eyes. "Can I help you folks?" he asked. Marcus explained what we'd heard. The ranger's expression changed. His face went pale. "You heard her too?" he said quietly. We all looked at each other. "What do you mean, too?" I asked. The ranger sighed and sat down heavily. "A woman drowned in that lake in 1994, he said. "Her name was Rebecca Morris. She was camping with her boyfriend. They went swimming at night. He said she went under and never came back up. They found her body 3 days later." "Okay, but," Sarah started. "People hear her sometimes," the ranger continued. "Screaming, calling for help. It's been happening for almost 30 years. Always at night. Always from the water." "You're saying it's a ghost?" Marcus asked skeptically. The ranger shrugged. "I'm saying people hear screaming. I don't know what it is. But you're not the first. Won't be the last." "Why didn't you warn us?" Jessica demanded. "Would you have believed me?" the ranger asked. "Would you have stayed if I told you the lake was haunted?" He had a point. We left without another word. On the drive back to campus, we made a pact. We wouldn't talk about it. We'd just forget it and move on. But I couldn't forget. I researched Rebecca Morris when I got home. Found her obituary. Found old newspaper articles about the drowning. Accidental death, they said. Tragic accident. But one detail stuck with me. According to her boyfriend's statement, Rebecca was screaming for help before she went under. He was only 20 feet away, but he said he couldn't reach her in time. He said it was like something pulled her down. I don't know if that lake is haunted. I don't know if Rebecca's spirit is trapped there, reliving her death over and over. But I know what I heard, and I know it sounded real. Terrifyingly, desperately real. I went back to that lake once, 2 years later. During the day, I stood at the shore and looked out at the water. It was beautiful, peaceful, still. But I couldn't shake the feeling that something was down there, waiting, watching, screaming. I haven't been back since, and I never will, because sometimes late at night when everything is quiet, I still hear her, screaming, calling for help, and I wonder, if I'd gone into the water that night, would I have saved her, or would I have drowned too? I still don't understand what we saw, and believe me, I've tried. I've gone over it 1,000 times in my head. I've looked for logical explanations. I've tried to convince myself it was a prank, a hallucination, anything that makes sense. But nothing makes sense, because tents don't just appear out of nowhere, and they don't disappear without a trace. Let me tell you what happened. It was July 2020, middle of the pandemic. My boyfriend Alex and I were going stir-crazy in our tiny apartment. We needed to get out, breathe fresh air, feel normal again. We decided to go camping in the Rockies, just the two of us, as far from people as possible. We spent days planning. We picked a remote spot, miles off any marked trail. No campgrounds, no facilities, just wilderness. We wanted to be completely alone. We got our wish, or so we thought. We hiked in on a Saturday morning. It took us about 6 hours to reach the spot we'd picked from the map, a small clearing surrounded by pine trees, with a stream nearby and a view of the mountains. Perfect. We set up our tent, made lunch, explored the area. There was no sign of anyone else. No footprints, no trash, no fire rings, nothing. We were truly alone. That first night was incredible. We made a fire, cooked dinner, watched the stars. We talked about the future, about getting through the pandemic together, about maybe getting married someday. I felt happy, peaceful. We went to bed around 11 p.m., exhausted from the hike. I slept better than I had in months. When I woke up the next morning, the sun was already up. Alex was still asleep next to me. I unzipped the tent quietly and stepped outside to start the coffee. That's when I saw it. Another tent, maybe 50 feet away from ours. Bright red, two-person dome tent, brand new looking. I froze. It wasn't there last night. I know it wasn't. I stared at it for a long moment, my heart starting to race. Alex! I called back into our tent, trying to keep my voice steady. Alex, wake up. What? He mumbled. Come out here. I heard him moving around. Then he emerged, rubbing his eyes. What's wrong? I pointed. He looked. His eyes widened. Where did that come from? I don't know. It wasn't here last night. Are you sure? Yes, I'm sure. We would have seen it. We would have heard someone setting it up. We stood there, staring at the tent. It was completely still, zipped shut. No movement inside. No sounds. Hello? Alex called out. Anyone there? Nothing. Maybe they set up really late, he said, after we went to sleep. And they were quiet. At night? In total darkness? In the middle of nowhere? He didn't have an answer. We waited a few minutes, watching the tent. No one emerged. This is weird, I said. Yeah. Should we check on them? Make sure they're okay? Alex hesitated. I guess. We walked over slowly, calling out as we approached. Hello? We're not trying to bother you. Just want to make sure you're all right. No response. We got closer. The tent looked new. Expensive. The kind you buy at REI for a few $100s. Alex knocked on the tent pole. Hello? Anyone in there? Silence. He looked at me. I nodded. He reached for the zipper and slowly pulled it down. The tent was empty, but it wasn't empty. Inside, there was a sleeping bag, unrolled, like someone had been sleeping in it. There was a lantern, a backpack, a water bottle, a book, all arranged neatly, like someone was living there, but no person. What the fuck? Alex whispered. I felt sick. Maybe they went for a walk, I said, or to get water. Without their water bottle? He was right. We backed away from the tent slowly. Let's just give them space, I said. Maybe they'll come back. We returned to our campsite and tried to act normal. We made breakfast. We cleaned up, but we kept glancing over at that tent. No one came back. Hours passed. By noon, we decided to hike to the stream to filter water. When we came back an hour later, the tent was still there. Still zipped shut. Still no sign of anyone. This is really freaking me out, I said. Me too, Alex admitted. We tried to enjoy the rest of the day, but we couldn't. That tent was all we could think about. Who did it belong to? Where were they? Why was all their stuff still inside? That evening, we made dinner and sat by our fire, stealing glances at the red tent. As the sun set, I felt a growing sense of dread. I don't want to stay here tonight, I said quietly. We can't hike out in the dark, Alex said. It's not safe. Neither is this. He couldn't argue with that. We went to bed early, around 9 p.m. We didn't talk much, just crawled into our sleeping bags and lay there, listening. Around midnight, I heard it, unzipping, the sound of a tent zipper being pulled down. Slowly, I grabbed Alex's arm. He was already awake. "You heard that?" I whispered. He nodded. We lay there, barely breathing, listening. The unzipping stopped. Silence. Then we heard footsteps. Soft, light, walking around the other tent. Someone was out there. "Should we look?" I whispered. "No," Alex said firmly. "Don't move." We didn't. We just lay there, listening to the footsteps circle the other tent. Over and over. For at least an hour. Then suddenly they stopped. Silence. We didn't sleep. We just waited for sunrise. When the first light started to filter through the tent, I couldn't wait anymore. I unzipped our tent and looked out. The red tent was gone. Completely gone. I scrambled out, Alex right behind me. We ran to where it had been. There was nothing. No tent. No stakes. No footprints. No flattened grass where it had stood. Nothing. Like it had never been there. "No," Alex said. "No, no, no. This isn't possible." We searched the entire area. We looked for any sign that a tent had been there. Nothing. The ground was undisturbed. "We both saw it," I said, my voice shaking. "Right? We both saw that tent." "Yes," Alex said. "I saw it. I touched it. I opened it." "Then where is it?" He didn't answer. We packed up in silence. We didn't eat breakfast. Didn't drink coffee. We just threw everything into our packs and left. We hiked out in record time, barely speaking. When we got to the car, we sat there for a long time. "What was that?" I finally asked. "I don't know. Should we report it?" "Report what?" "That we saw a tent that disappeared." He was right. No one would believe us. We drove home. We broke up 3 months later. Not because we wanted to, but because every time we looked at each other, we remembered that tent. And we couldn't explain it. And it drove us crazy. I've tried to research it. Tried to find similar stories. I found a few things online. Stories about phantom camps, ghost tents, unexplained shelters in the wilderness. But no answers. I don't know what we saw. I don't know who or what was in that tent. But I know it was real. And I know it wasn't human. Sometimes late at night I dream about that red tent. And in my dreams, I unzip it again. But this time there's something inside, waiting for me, and I wake up screaming. I still won't camp without a gun. Not after that night. Not after seeing what we saw. My dad thinks I'm being paranoid. He says I'm overreacting. That it was probably just a bear. But he knows it wasn't a bear. He was there. He saw the prints. And he won't talk about it anymore. Let me tell you what happened. It was August 2018. I was 26, living in Seattle, working too much and not seeing my dad enough. He lived in Montana, same house I grew up in, right at the edge of Glacier National Park. Every summer since I was a kid, we'd do a father-son camping trip. Just the two of us. Same spot, same routine, same stories around the fire. It was our tradition. That year I almost canceled. Work was crazy. I was stressed, exhausted. But Dad called me. "Don't bail on me, kiddo," he said. "I'm getting old. Don't know how many more of these trips we've got." He was 64, in perfect health. But something in his voice made me book the flight. I flew out the first week of August. We drove up to our spot on a Friday afternoon. A clearing about 8 miles into the backcountry, near a creek. We'd been going there for 20 years. We knew every tree, every rock, every sound. Felt like coming home. We set up camp the way we always did. Dad handled the tent. I gathered firewood. We worked in comfortable silence, the way you do with someone you've done something with 100 times. By 6 p.m., we had a fire going and steaks cooking. "This is what I needed," I said, cracking open a beer. Dad smiled. "Me too, son. Me too." We ate. We talked. We laughed. It was perfect. Around 9 p.m., we cleaned up and secured our food. Dad was meticulous about it. He'd seen too many campsites destroyed by bears over the years. We had a cooler filled with our food for the next 2 days. Dad tied it to a tree with heavy rope, about 20 feet from our tent. Standard procedure. "That's not going anywhere," he said, testing the knot. We went to bed around 10:30. I fell asleep almost immediately. I don't know what time it was when I woke up, but I woke up to a sound. Dragging. Heavy. Slow. Rhythmic. Something being pulled across the ground. I sat up, disoriented. It was pitch black inside the tent. "Dad," I whispered. "You awake?" "Yeah," he said quietly. "I hear it." We listened. The dragging continued, getting quieter, moving away from us. Dad grabbed his flashlight and unzipped the tent. I followed him out. He shone his light toward the tree where we tied the cooler. The cooler was gone. The rope was still there, but it had been snapped. Not cut. Snapped. The frayed ends hung loose against the tree bark. "What the hell?" Dad muttered. We grabbed our flashlights and followed the drag marks. They were deep, carved into the dirt, like something incredibly heavy had been pulled across the ground. We followed them into the woods. The marks went on for what felt like forever. 50 feet, 100 feet, 200 feet. Then they stopped. The cooler was there, sitting in a small clearing, surrounded by trees. But it was destroyed. The lid was ripped off. Not opened, ripped. The hinges were completely torn away, bent metal jutting out at odd angles. The contents were scattered everywhere. Food packages torn open, cans punctured, our steaks shredded. "Jesus," I whispered. Dad knelt down, examining the cooler with his light. That's when we saw the marks. Claw marks, deep gouges in the plastic, for parallel lines, each about an inch apart. But they were too big, way too big. "That's not a bear," I said. "No," Dad agreed quietly. "It's not. Bears have 5 claws. These marks only showed 4, and they were massive. Each gouge was at least a 1/4 inch deep in the hard plastic." Then Dad pointed his light at the ground. "Look at this," he said. "Prints. In the dirt. But they weren't paw prints. They were hand prints. Human-shaped. 5 fingers. Palm. But enormous. At least twice the size of my dad's hand. Maybe bigger. And they were pressed deep into the earth. Like whatever made them was incredibly heavy." "What the fuck is that?" I said, my voice shaking. Dad didn't answer. He just stared at the prints, his face pale in the flashlight beam. There were dozens of them, all around the cooler, like something had been crouching there, tearing into our food, using its hands. "We need to go," I said. "Right now." "It's the middle of the night," Dad said. "We can't hike in the dark. Not with whatever this is out here. We can't stay. We don't have a choice." He was right. The trail was treacherous even in daylight. At night, with no moon, we'd break an ankle or worse. We went back to camp. We didn't sleep. We built up the fire as big as we could. Sat with our backs to it, knives in hand, watching the tree line. Every sound made us jump. Every crack of a branch. Every rustle of leaves. Around 4 a.m. we heard something. Breathing. Heavy. Raspy. Coming from just beyond the firelight. Dad stood up, holding his knife. "Who's there?" he shouted. The breathing stopped. Silence. Then we heard movement. Something large moving through the brush, circling our camp. We could hear branches breaking, leaves crunching, but we couldn't see anything. Whatever it was stayed just beyond the reach of our firelight. It circled us for at least 20 minutes. Then it left. We heard it moving away, crashing through the forest, getting quieter, until we couldn't hear it anymore. We didn't move. We just sat there waiting for sunrise. When the sun finally came up, we packed faster than we'd ever packed in our lives. We didn't talk, didn't eat, just threw everything into our bags and ran. We made it back to the trailhead in less than 3 hours. A hike that usually took 5. Dad's truck had never looked so good. We threw our gear in the back and got in. Dad started the engine. That's when I saw it. On the windshield, a handprint, huge, muddy, pressed against the glass. The same size as the prints in the dirt. "Dad," I said, my voice barely a whisper. He saw it too. His hands were shaking on the steering wheel. "It followed us," I said. He didn't respond, just put the truck in gear and drove. We went straight to the ranger station. We told them everything. They listened politely, took notes, said they'd investigate, but I could see it in their eyes. They didn't believe us. Probably a grizzly, one ranger said. They can get pretty big. It wasn't a bear, Dad said firmly. Sometimes in low light, things look different then. It wasn't a goddamn bear, Dad said louder this time. They said they'd send someone to check the site. I don't know if they ever did. Dad and I drove back to his house in silence. We haven't been camping together since. He says he's too old now, too tired. But I know the truth. He's scared. So am I, because we both know what we saw. And we both know it wasn't a bear. It was something else. Something that walks on two legs. Something with hands. Something that knew where we were. And I think it let us leave. I don't know why. But sometimes late at night I wonder, what if we'd stayed? What if it had come closer? What would we have seen? I don't want to know, but I can't stop thinking about it. About those handprints. About that breathing. About whatever was watching us from the darkness. And I know, deep in my bones, it's still out there, waiting. I still hear her voice in my dreams, screaming, desperate, calling for help that never came. My therapist says it's guilt. Survivor's guilt, she calls it. She says I did everything I could have done. But that's not true, because I could have gone into the water. I could have tried to save her. Instead, I ran. And now she screams in my head every single night. Let me tell you what really happened at that lake in Maine. It was May 2019, end of sophomore year at UMass. My friends and I, 6 of us, rented a campsite for the weekend. One last party before summer break scattered us across the country. We weren't thinking about anything serious. We just wanted to get drunk, blast music, swim, have fun, be young and stupid. The campsite was perfect for that. Private, isolated, right on the water of Lake Sebago. No neighbors, no rules, no supervision. We arrived Friday afternoon with coolers full of beer, a Bluetooth speaker, and absolutely zero survival skills. We were idiots, happy idiots. We set up our tents, started drinking around 5 p.m., and by 9 p.m. we were already too drunk to make good decisions. Someone, I think it was Marcus, suggested we tell ghost stories. We sat around the fire, taking turns trying to scare each other. Sarah told a story about a girl who drowned. Jessica talked about a lake monster. Derek made up something about a serial killer. We were laughing more than we were scared. It was all just fun. Until it wasn't. Around midnight, someone suggested we go swimming. It's too dark, I said. That's what makes it fun. Marcus slurred. Half the group was already stumbling toward the water, pulling off their shirts. I stayed by the fire with Jessica. We were the only sober ones, relatively speaking. We watched our friends splash around in the darkness, their laughter echoing across the lake. They're going to drown, Jessica said. Probably, I agreed. But we didn't stop them. That was our first mistake. After about 20 minutes, everyone came back to shore, shivering and laughing. We wrapped ourselves in towels, fed the fire, cracked more beers. Around 1 a.m., the ghost stories started again. Derek was in the middle of some dumb story about a haunted cemetery when we heard it. Screaming. From the lake. We all stopped talking. It was a woman's voice. High-pitched. Terrified. Desperate. Help! Help me! Please! We jumped to our feet. What the fuck? Marcus said. Someone's in the water, Sarah yelled. We grabbed our flashlights and ran toward the shore, stumbling over rocks and roots. When we reached the water, we shone our lights across the lake. Nothing. Just black water. Completely still. Hello! Marcus shouted. Where are you? The screaming continued. Help me! Please! I'm drowning! It sounded close, maybe 50 feet offshore, but we couldn't see anything. No splashing, no movement, no ripples. The water was like glass. How is that possible? I said. She went under, Sarah said, her voice shaking. We need to go in. Now. Marcus started pulling off his shoes. Wait, I said, grabbing his arm. Something's not right. Someone's drowning. he shouted. Then where are the ripples? Where's the splashing? Maybe she's too tired to. The screaming interrupted him. But this time it came from directly below us. Under the water, right at our feet. We all jumped back. What the fuck? Derek yelled. The water was completely still. No bubbles. No movement. Nothing. But the voice was coming from beneath the surface. Clear. Loud. Desperate. Help! Please. Someone help me. This isn't real, Jessica whispered. This can't be real. The screaming moved. Now it was coming from 20 feet to our left. Then 30 feet to our right. Then directly in front of us again. Moving around the lake. Under the water. But the surface never broke. We need to leave, I said. Right now. We can't leave someone drowning, Sarah shouted. There's no one there, I yelled back. Look at the water. We all stared at the lake. Still as glass. Not a single ripple. The screaming continued for another 2 minutes. Then it stopped. Suddenly, like someone had flipped a switch. Complete silence. We stood there, flashlights pointed at the water, waiting. Nothing. The lake was dead calm. Even the insects had stopped chirping. What was that? Jessica whispered. No one answered. We stood there for maybe 10 minutes, not speaking, just watching the water. Finally, Marcus said, We should call someone. There's no signal, Derek said, holding up his phone. Then we drive to town. Find help. But none of us moved. Because we all knew. Whatever we'd heard wasn't human. We walked back to camp in silence. The fire was still going. But it felt different now. Colder. Darker. We sat around it, not drinking, not talking. Just listening. Around 3 a.m. we heard it again. Faint. Distant. Screaming from the lake. Help me. It went on for hours. Sometimes loud. Sometimes quiet. Sometimes right at the shore. Sometimes far away. But always the same voice. Always the same words. We didn't sleep. At dawn, the screaming stopped. We packed up in silence. Before we left, Sarah insisted we talk to the park ranger. The ranger station was about 15 miles away. We drove there in 2 cars, none of us speaking. The ranger was an older man, maybe 65, with weathered skin and tired eyes. Marcus explained what we'd heard. The ranger's face changed, went pale. You heard Rebecca, he said quietly. Who? I asked. He sighed heavily and sat down. Rebecca Morris, 1994. She drowned in that lake. We all looked at each other. She was camping with her boyfriend, the ranger continued. They went swimming at night. She got into trouble, started screaming for help. He tried to save her, but he trailed off. But what? Sarah pressed. He said something pulled her under. He was only 20 feet away, but he couldn't reach her. Like something was dragging her down. A chill ran through me. They found her body 3 days later, 20 feet deep. But here's the strange thing. He paused. What? Marcus asked. She had handprints on her ankles, bruises, like someone had grabbed her and pulled her down. But her boyfriend was on shore when they found him. Exhausted, hypothermic. He'd been searching all night. So who grabbed her? Jessica asked. The ranger shook his head. They never figured it out, ruled it an accidental drowning. But people have been hearing her ever since, especially at night. Always the same thing, screaming for help. Why didn't you warn us? Sarah demanded. Would you have believed me? The ranger asked. Would you have stayed if I told you the lake was haunted? He was right. We left without another word. On the drive home, we made a pact. We wouldn't talk about it. We'd just forget and move on. But I couldn't forget. I researched Rebecca Morris when I got home. Found her obituary. Found newspaper articles. Everything the ranger said was true. But I found something else. An interview with her boyfriend, published a week after her death. He said something that haunts me. She was screaming my name, begging me to help her. But when I dove in, I couldn't find her. It was like she was there, but she wasn't. Like she was in a different place. And then I felt hands. Cold hands. grabbing my legs, trying to pull me down too. I barely made it back to shore. He killed himself 6 months later. Left a note that said, "She's still calling me. Every night. I can't take it anymore. I'm coming, Rebecca. I'm sorry I couldn't save you." I think about that a lot. About how guilt can destroy you. About how some sounds never stop. I went back to that lake 2 years later. During the day, the water was beautiful, clear, peaceful. I stood at the shore and looked out. And I whispered, "I'm sorry." I don't know if she heard me, but that night I heard her. In my apartment, in my bedroom, screaming, "Help me." She's been with me ever since. Not every night, but enough. Enough to remind me that some people die calling for help. And no one comes. And they never stop calling.